very recently I had the opportunity to sit down with Cage Studios and have a conversation about the parkour meets Robin Hood extravaganza that is Sherwood Extreme. Now, it was a very exciting interview. We covered a bunch of different things, but don't take my word for it. Let's dive into the interview, shall we?
Before we get into Sherwood itself, I noticed that Cage made a game. I believe it released, I want to say summer of last year. I actually didn't look at the specific release date, but you guys made a game. It was called Sale and Sacrifice, and
Yeah.
that was very recently. So tell me about the kind of the turnaround, because it's very quick first, and like just tell me about the learning experience and what you kind of took from that game moving into Sherwood.
Yeah. Should I talk about this, Gabe?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it actually, you'd be surprised that right after we released Sale and Sacrifice, we continued to update it for a few months, and then we started working on prototypes, and we made about four prototypes over the course of that next year, and we would put them online for free on like Game Jolt and stuff. And this one game, Sherwood Extreme, we made a prototype for it. Like we designed it, came up with a prototype in a few days, and put it online, and it was getting like hundreds of downloads, or like 1,000 downloads in the first weekend. We were like, okay, this is definitely more popular than our other prototypes. We should go with this one. And that's where we started, kind of like committed to it as like our official project, and doing the whole game dev cycle with it. And we kind of were used to it at this point from Sale and Sacrifice and our other game dev experiences. So, building up our team, getting all the design, and then fleshing out what is going to be the timeline for this, and all of that. We really learned a lot from Sale and Sacrifice in terms of, how can we really push for the quality and the polish that we want it to have? How can we get that gameplay feeling really good for different types of players and that kind of thing?
So before Sale and Sacrifice was even done, did you kind of know that was Sherwood Extreme something you'd already kind of envisioned at that point, or was that something that took place at a later date, basically?
Even honestly, what kind of happened is that we shipped Sale and Sacrifice. It wasn't, no studio's first game is going to pave the road with gold bricks. So we learned a lot from that. We kind of put our heads down for a while, and we were prototyping, like Solar said. This, that, the other thing. I mean, a lot of things we had experience with, certain things we didn't have experience with. And when we landed on this kind of animation plus third-person shooter thing that we had come up with in a quick turnaround period, we were really pleased with it. It was definitely the highest level of quality that we were able to produce in such a short amount of time, given all those different proofs of concept we had. And we really believed in this, and we saw a lot of potential in it. And it was really only, probably it was less than 6 months after Sale and Sacrifice released, we started thinking again.
That's actually a perfect segue, because then that takes us into Sherwood. So it's a very unique mixture of a bunch of different things. You have parkour, you have kind of the action element, the slow-mo element when you're doing all the different crazy action scenes. You have Robin Hood in there. It's a whole bunch of different things. So where did the inspiration for that come from? Was it a movie? Was it a game? Where did that come from?
We started by talking about the idea of like a Robin Hood game. This was something that we kind of like had mentioned to each other like years back, like over 5 years ago. And then I came up with the idea one day of like, Gabe came to me with some cool tech, like this like cool animations and like firing a bow. And I was like, oh, what if we make this like super fast-paced extreme game where you're just like running through levels and you're trying to like steal the treasure at the end, like Robin Hood does. And Gabe took up from there. He added the like swing ropes and the zip lines, which are now like the iconic parts of like flying through the levels. And that all kind of tied together really quickly. He built out a few levels for it with that like kind of high-speed action, one-shot killing everything design in mind. And it really worked together pretty well. It's a new spin on the Robin Hood concept, is usually like a, I think recently there's somewhere he's like a gritty, like dark action hero, and there's somewhere he's like a Disney movie character. We're kind of like in between a little bit. He's like an action hero, but he doesn't take himself seriously, kind of like inspired by like Shrek or Daredevil.
Okay.
Kind of like anti-heroes a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something. I mean, in terms of games, we draw from, things like Spyro or Crash Bandicoot or Mario Kart even. I mean, in these games you're not necessarily a bipedal human, but that's the level of speed we're talking about. That's what we're trying to achieve in kind of this superhuman form of Robin Hood, where he is just going, 100 miles an hour on riding explosion waves and things like that. And it's just about the badassery of it all, and how a new player can feel like they're having a great time and feel like they really own this, and then an astute player who dedicates themselves to it will really be able to master these little nuances that allow them to become amazing at this game.
Okay. So then kind of moving into, I know the game has a co-op aspect to it. So with a game like this, how much does the whole experience change when you add that co-op part to it? So when you're playing solo to playing co-op, how much just kind of the mechanics within the actual levels change, and kind of the way you approach all the different scenarios? How does that fluctuate?
In terms of the levels, we have like 7 or so levels, and there's quests that once you like add the quests on it, there's like thousands of level variations that you could be playing with. And when you're playing with your friends, you also have weapons that you can switch to like kind of get your loadout, and you can get loadouts that kind of complement each other. Where like you have your crossbows, which you could be a sniper or blowing people up, and then you could have your shield, which have specific co-op effects. Like you can grapple to your ally, you can make your ally invincible, you can heal your ally, launch your ally, things like that. That kind of it makes it feel kind of has the essence of like a hero shooter kind of thing, like Overwatch type of co-op experience. And obviously, since it's PvE, you're competing against other players on leaderboard. So the PvP aspect of it is kind of like you're competing with other people on the leaderboards, but not directly. And the co-op experience is very much like if you get another player in the level, it's going to be easier, but now there's a lot more things that you can master together. You can like really optimize where one player will be speed running it and going for the best time, where the other player is going to make sure that you clear all the goblins along the way and more of the killer type. And it will create a meta that we anticipate between like using the different types of weapons for the different play styles and having those two play styles complement each other in co-op.
Okay, and that really actually perfectly transitions over to, so the next question was about the different levels within the game and just how linear those levels are, and whether there's open world aspects. You had mentioned there's different variations of levels. Can you kind of explain that and kind of go into just the different level structure, how many there are, and how explain the linear aspect to if there is any semi or open world aspects to it?
Yeah, I can cover that. So essentially what we have is right now in the current version of our game, we have 6 levels. We definitely plan on expanding that. And there may or may not be things in the works. But the idea is with these 6 levels, it needs to be really replayable. So a layer on that is what we call multiplicative game design. And we apply that in certain ways. One of them is to the quest. And what that means is we say we'll pick one of your levels at random that you've unlocked. We'll take Nottingham, and that level will apply modifiers to it. You've seen this maybe in games like Path of Exile, like Dungeons, or Halo legendary modifiers and things like that, where it really kind of adds little bits and pieces and bends the rules of the game to give it a lot of variety. And the thing is, when we have at least a dozen modifiers, if not like 20 or so by now, and when you kind of cross-pollinate them in a way, it really creates different DNA for every quest. And that means, it can combine, hoppin' goblins, which is goblins that jump up and down constantly and are harder to hit, with boblin goblins, which means they're bobblehead goblins, and that their heads kind of, bounce around on their necks, and they're harder to get headshots on. Well, that creates for something that's actually a lot more difficult, but we didn't really change much besides making them jump around and act differently. And there's a lot of mechanics like trap remix that'll add tracks to the level and change the soundtrack to, a trap remix. And there's dozens of ways we can edit things and then combine all those variables together to create like super unique experiences every time. while understanding the overlap between them.
Okay, so it's an experience you never play the same level the same
And in
way,
terms of the
basically.
different levels, it starts off with a few. Yeah, it starts off with a few linear levels, which are kind of like you're ziplining down to the end, or like running through, getting through a cave, swinging along it. By the time you get to the middle of the game, Nottingham, it really opens up. That's more like an arena style level where you can choose what route you're going to take, and you're trying to clear out this like little village of goblins, and you can kind of optimize your path and stuff. And we've seen some of our players actually draw maps out for like what their speedrunning route is to make sure they get all the goblins and reach the end. And then once you get to the later levels, those really open up and feel more open worldy, where either you'll have like splitting paths that you can choose between, or to like getting lost in the Sherwood forest that has like different layers of the canopy and all that, where you're searching for the goblins and exploring along the way, and doesn't feel as much like a linear speedrun level. Even though you are still like aiming for that, like getting all the kills, getting a good time and everything, it does feel more open worldy and adventurous.
The scope of the levels definitely kind of expands as you progress through the game. And so level 1's a lot more linear than level 6, which is a lot more open, branching paths like Solar's talking about.
All right, and then we kind of briefly mentioned the weapons and the customization in that sense. Can you talk to me a little bit more in detail about the customization of your characters and your weapons? And then while I was looking through different stuff about the game, one of the things I came across is there's the hideout within the game itself. Can you kind of explain that a little bit more in detail for people to understand?
All right, cool. So basically the hideout is the hub world in between levels, where the player has the option to choose their loadout in terms of their crossbow and their shield at one of the shopkeepers, and then at a different shopkeeper they can, we call them shopkeepers, they're just, they're people in their little huts that show you what's going on. Mm-hmm. And then there's quests and season rewards, season-based rewards, which we're calling the Kingdom Pass, which has a bunch of free stuff in it, and basically is progressed by completing quests over and over again. There's daily quests, which give you like exclusive daily rewards and things like that. And we also have, a customization shop, which will include, in-game currency and, some premium currency, which will be basically available through gameplay as well. Because we wanted this to be a minor component of it, just kind of a way for players to support the developers and give them an awesome reward for it, basically, which is
you've got like hundreds of different types of like cosmetics and things, and we really are leaning into the silly aspect when it comes to that. Like we have like a horse head you can put on your head, or like a punk rock outfit. Things that really make you be like, wait, is this a medieval game, or is this just like a hilarious action game? Mm-hmm. So players, we really want to like create outfits that make people laugh and allow players to express themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. What about, so is there any sense of character ranking up, or is that something that is kind of not as important in this game as just the actual gameplay itself and the weapons you choose as you go into your levels?
You want to talk about the prestige system?
Yeah, we have a lot of ways in which the players are progressing. We've got a leveling up and prestige system, which makes this like a banner in your hideout that just like gets cooler and cooler as you level up, so you can show off to your friends and everything. We've got stars, where you can master each level and unlock stars for them. And there's a leaderboard rankings, which are more skill-based and trying to compete for the best scores with against your friends and everybody in the world. The hideout really is meant to be like, we don't like just throwing a menu in front of people and being like, oh, you choose a level in like a menu and then you just like, you're done. We want it to feel like a world, and that's kind of drew inspiration from like Crash, where you like jump into the portals and you kind of like spin out and then like get sucked in. So you have like that, how you like jump into the level portals and then you like walk up to the shopkeepers and engage with them in order to equip your character and things like that. So it feels like a world and not just like a menu.
And then we briefly talked about the different weapons within the game. Can you get in a little bit more detail as to how, when you go into your map, how does the gameplay mechanics work in that sense, where you're choosing different weapons when you go in, and how does that affect your gameplay as you progress throughout the game?
The weapons are meant to feel like a different type of loadout in another game where they really change how you play. If you have a sniper, you're going to be going for those long range headshots, whereas if you have a mini bow, you're going to be just like spraying arrows everywhere, and it's really fun to just like take down a boss super quickly with that mini bow. And then you've got a grenade launcher, which you don't have to be as accurate, and you can like blow people up with crazy style. So it kind of changes your play. The shields really come into play once you're in co-op and you have all these co-op effects that you're doing with each other. And in the future, we definitely are planning to add a lot of like more weapon types, because every time you jump into a level with a different weapon, especially combined with the combo system and the combo multipliers, it just has a completely different way in which you're trying to optimize your score and killing goblins with high speed. So, and we also are planning to include potentially combining these weapons into, say, like a mini bow that shoots rapid fire explosives and things like that. So it just like changes, all the weapons kind of change the gameplay in kind of this extreme way.
I actually didn't have this question written down, but how many different enemy types do you have in the game? I know you'd mentioned the goblins, and I'm sure there's a bunch of different boss types, but just how many different enemies are players going to be running into?
Yeah, I can cover that. So we have several classes, I guess, is a great way of looking at it, right? We have fun little names for them. I'm not sure they even appear in the game at any point, but we call them internally Hobwacks, which are the melee guys, Laugh Rats, the archers, Wargors, which are the tanks with the shield. We have, fire wizards, time wizards. Let's see. There's the boomers, aka the bomb, the guys that hold the bombs on their shoulder. I think there's a bouncy wizard. They kind of cast these like bouncing projectiles that are like acidic. And then there's basically variations from the quests on the archers, which are the most prevalent enemy. So you can get a mythic quest that has a total of 5 modifiers, 3 of which are enemies rapid fire arrows, enemy arrows explode, and enemy arrows, are slowed. So you could all of a sudden have these like slow-mo explosive rapid fire arrows coming from an archer that normally would have just been a single shot archer in your original playthrough.
Okay, and then another question actually comes to mind while you were talking about that. The difficulty structure within the game, how does that actually play out? Is there an actual difficulty leveling, or is it just set in one way? How does that work within the game?
We like to leave the difficulty a little bit up to the players. There isn't a difficulty setting, but depending on what your goals are, the difficulty kind of changes. The first time you're trying to play the levels, the earlier levels are easier, the later levels are harder and to get through because there's like more goblins and harder traversal setups. But once you're trying to compete for the leaderboards, even the simple, shorter, earlier levels become really hard when you're trying to like make sure that everything you kill is a headshot while flipping in the air, and you're bouncing off explosions at the right angle to get you the perfect time. And that's where the difficulty really comes in. It's like, oh, you missed a headshot and you're trying to restart the level, or you're really optimizing your paths and things like that. But the later levels, even if you're just trying to complete them, they can be kind of challenging because of the different types of enemies and trying to swing over lava pits while bouncing on mushrooms towards the finish line.
And the leaderboard in the game, how does that exactly work? Is it based on level, or is it based on the entire game itself?
So the leaderboards function on a per level basis. So every single level has a high score. And it's kind of interesting because there's the combo multiplier, which affects how lucrative, I guess, for your high score that your kill points are. But there's also the time factor and making sure you have full health factor. So there's multiple things that play into this that's really kind of this aggregate score of your gameplay performance. And the game encourages you to, stay at full life, make sure you clear all the goblins, make sure you get headshots or explosive shots as opposed to normal ones. Make sure you're always going as quickly as possible. There are ways we nudge players in the direction of the way we think this game is played most funly. And the score is just really this overall sort of thing, and that's what makes it so interesting. Is no matter how fast you go, if you skip all the goblins, you're not going to get a high score, because that's not how the game is meant to be played.
Okay. And then the one question I actually skimmed over. During the game festival, I noticed that the game wasn't fully controller compatible. Is that something you guys are going to integrate, or is that just not something you have in mind right now?
Absolutely, we're going to integrate full controller compatibility. The toughest thing for us is iterating on user interface. Constantly presents an issue where, if you spend all this time making it compatible with the controller in development, and then you end up scrapping a lot of your user interface anyway, that's a lot of time wasted. And so it's just a kind of a constant balancing act between, when are we ready before launch to do this, versus when are we wasting our time.
So right now we focus on making all the gameplay gamepad compatible, and then in the future we're going to add support for all the menus and everything, so the full experience can be played on gamepad.
All right, that makes sense. And then I ask every developer this just because I love hearing the answers. What is your guys' favorite part of this game? Everybody has a specific part they fall back on usually, and you guys spend so much time working on these titles, so I know there's something that pops out to one of you.
Solar, go ahead.
For me, I play the game a lot. Gabe, not as much. So for me, it's just like really satisfying when I do some crazy trick. Like I bounce off of an explosion and do a flip in midair, and then I get like 3 headshots in that. Like just like those moments where I feel like a total badass for like bouncing off an explosion, swinging off a rope, and then getting 3 headshots while I'm flipping on the way down. That's just like those kinds of extreme, crazy, ridiculous moments are really what make the experience fun for me. That's my favorite part, I think.
Yes, Solar's answer is kind of more gameplay oriented, and I'm gonna circumvent your loaded question here, and I'm going to say, honestly, I don't have this is something I've said before, I don't have a right to enjoy the game. As lead developer, when the game is perfectly fun and working, the only thing on my mind is, thank God nothing is bugged out right now, right? So, even when it's at its perfect moments, all I can think is this relief, not fun. So, because it's this world I live in where I am responsible and know for a lot of this code what's supposed to be happening, and it hurts when it doesn't work. That's something that's weird about game development. For some reason, it's just emotional. And so for me, the best part about this game is really the community, because you could play the game for 10 minutes, you could play the game for 10 hours. If you met anybody else who has played Sherwood Extreme from our Discord, you'll immediately just be friendly with you, and it's a really positive experience to not only have this social structure from our community, but also to share something together is a really special thing. And it's not like we get to do that every day with strangers. And to me, that's what's awesome, is just meeting random people like yourself, even,
Yeah.
To just share it, because that's the best part of making games for me, is the sharing.
The final question before we kind of end the interview. You guys have a playtest coming up this weekend, and can you kind of tell people where they can find the beta for the game, where they can play it?
I'm all about it, Solar.
Yeah, definitely. We have a playtest coming up featuring online co-op, revisited and updated. You guys should all check it out in our Discord, and I can send you the link for that if you want to forward that somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a live playtest where everybody will be live streaming the game, where all the developers are going to be there chatting with people. You can give your feedback, and we really take feedback to heart. A lot of our content, even the idea for co-op, came from our Discord community. So if there's something that you guys want to see in the game, then we're always happy to have that. The playtest is on Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time.
And then The last thing I can really think of that I don't have written down, something I also usually ask a lot of developers, is there any Easter eggs you guys want to mention, or do you guys even just want to mention there are Easter eggs, or is that something you want to keep secret?
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly Easter themed. I think that's more bunnies, but it's collectible chickens.
Oh.
They are explosive in our game, and when you coop a chicken, as we like to say, a golden chicken, in fact, it goes to your hideout, and the golden chickens roam around as your friendly friends. And the problem is, if you shoot them, they may, explode, as is their nature, but that's only because they're possessed by demons, and you're really just saving them from themselves at that point. So don't worry, no chickens were harmed in the process, except the ones that were already possessed by demons to begin.
Perfect. All right, I think that's everything I had.
To the level that you can find. Like as you're exploring Sherwood Forest, there's different pockets of the forest where you can find a chest and chicken, and you can get on top of crazy parts of, like, there's like blimps flying around in levels, and you can like get on top of those. You can get on top of the pirate ships that the first time you play through you don't actually realize is possible. And we like to keep that for replayability and for the community to discover things that we didn't know was possible a lot of the time.
Absolutely. Okay. So yeah, that is all the questions I have at this point. Is there anything before we close it out that you guys wanted to mention, whether it's gameplay, story, co-op, anything else that we might have missed?
Yeah, as Gabriel said, our Discord community is super welcoming and friendly, and we're going to continue to be iterating based on people's feedback, and we love the high speed action that we have going so far, and it's going to keep on growing from now with new levels, new content, and new things that you guys ask for. So join our Discord.
Yeah, there you go. You heard Solar. Join the Discord and you'll have a lovely time. I promise that our producer Minhal will welcome you, and so will the rest of our community. We'll be in there from time to time, checking in on things in the background, listening to your feedback. Most games tend to have, especially online competitive games, tend to have sometimes offbeat communities with not so fun interactions, and we like to think that we're a really positive, community-driven experience, and it's thanks to them that this game is even possible. So join the community and let's have fun.
I had a blast talking about Sherwood Extreme. There are so many different aspects about this game that I cannot wait for you to experience, but until we get the chance to actually dive into the full game itself, the beta is available. I have a bunch of different links below for you to go check out, so you can go experience the game for yourself and see what you think. But until next time, I am Nick Lehner. This is the Side Quest. Like, comment, and subscribe because it's all about you. But until next time, take it easy.
Witness is what? You gotta finish your sentence. Over.
That's it. My sentence is over.
Your sentence is what?
Hey, listen!